You're strong. I'm retired. She's my princess, my father said. I laughed. And now you'll be paying rent alone. 3 weeks later, my father and my sister showed up at my office, begging for help after being evicted. I used to count the minutes between lunch break and quitting time like they were lottery numbers. One of them might be lucky enough to set me free, but none ever did. My name is Adrian. I'm 27, and I live in Lancaster, California. For the past 12 years, I've been working at the same distribution warehouse, watching the same forklifts, the same flickering lights, the same men age faster than they should. People say hard work builds character. Maybe it does, for people who aren't being used. It wasn't always like this. When I was 15, my mom, Teresa, left for Europe. Said she got a job opportunity she couldn't pass up. Swore it would only be for a year, 2 at most. Said she'd send money back, and she did, at first. Checks came like clockwork. Then they came late. Then they came light. Then they didn't come at all. But she never came back. My dad, Leonard, took that money like it was a pension. He quit his job 6 months after she left. Said there was no point in working when she was sending enough for all of us. That was a lie. But he made it work, by drinking beer with his old friends in the garage, watching reruns and griping about politics. As if yelling at a TV counted as labor. I was 16 when I got my first job. Warehouse associate. Minimum wage. Long hours, bruised palms, blisters. But it was a paycheck, and that meant food, rent, bills. At first, I told myself I was helping. That mom would be proud. That she'd come back soon and be impressed. Belle, my little sister, was 11 then. Now she's 23 and still acts like I'm her personal bank account. She's never held a steady job. Never paid a single bill. Never washed a dish. She says she's looking for herself. Says working a normal job would crush her spirit. She doesn't say that when she hands me her credit card statements. And me? I'm still in the same room I had when I was a kid. Still sharing a roof with a man who does nothing but drink and a sister who can't be bothered to lift a finger. Still paying the internet, the electric, the groceries, the Netflix account. Belle won't stop upgrading. The worst part? I promised Mom I'd take care of them. She called one night, maybe 6 years ago. Said she was sorry. Said she was coming back soon. Said I was the man now. I told her I'd keep things together. I meant it. But every time I clock in at work or see another Amazon box on the porch that Belle didn't pay for, that promise feels heavier. Not honorable. Just stupid. Maybe I kept the lights on. But somewhere along the way, I stopped living. It started small. A suggestion here, an idea there. Nothing big. Just ways to make the floor run smoother. How to cut down on shipping errors, streamline picking routes, make the shift swaps easier. Most guys kept their heads down, did the bare minimum. Not me. I couldn't afford to. And after enough months of doing other people's jobs better than they could, someone in management finally noticed. My first promotion came at 22. Shift supervisor. 60 cents more an hour and a cheap polyester polo. I was still on the floor, still running freight. But people started asking me questions instead of ignoring me. I didn't let it go to my head. I knew what I was. A worker. A hustler. I wasn't trying to climb the ladder. I just didn't want to drown under it. But then came the lead logistics role, and after that, inventory coordinator. By the time I turned 26, I was sitting in the operations office with a nameplate on the desk and a salary that made me blink twice when I saw the direct deposit. 7 times more than what I started at. More than I ever thought I'd make wearing steel-toe boots. I didn't tell anyone at home. Leonard still thought I was making $14 an hour, grinding out overtime just to scrape by. I kept it that way. The thought of him knowing, of Belle knowing, made me sick. Because if they found out, the next morning would start with, Adrian, we were thinking, and end with me broke all over again. So I kept giving Dad the same $200 a week I always had. Let him think it was generous. Let Belle keep using my card for essentials like eyelash subscriptions and $200 jeans. I didn't argue. I just made sure to open a separate account and funnel the rest of my paycheck there, quietly, week by week. I lived like I always had. Same old bed in the same old room. Same torn curtain on the window. Same dishes in the sink that no one else washed. Dad still called me lazy when I didn't want to fix the back gate. Belle still called me cheap when I wouldn't upgrade the Wi-Fi again. They had no idea I could have walked into a realtor's office and bought a house in cash. Sometimes, I'd pull up Zillow listings at night. Dream a little. Look at places near the beach. A studio in Santa Monica. A condo in Glendale. I could afford all of them. But I didn't move. Because every time I pictured handing over the keys, I heard Mom's voice. Take care of them. That promise was still holding me hostage. Even as my world got bigger, it kept me tied to the smallest room in the house. It was the last thing I expected to happen. The last thing I wanted to happen. But it did. I came home late one Thursday after a grueling meeting with a vendor, my head full of spreadsheets and forecasts, just to find Belle sitting on the couch, her eyes glued to her phone. I dropped my work bag by the door, already bracing myself for whatever complaint she had this time. Some new app she wanted me to pay for, or maybe a new dress for a party she absolutely needed. But no, this time it was worse. Adrian, she called, her voice sharp, full of accusation. I froze, my hand still on the doorframe. She was holding my pay stub, the one I had accidentally left on the counter that morning. What's this? I felt my chest tighten. There was no way she had seen the salary listed there. No way. I tried to keep my face calm, my voice steady. It's nothing. Just throw that away. But she was already scrolling, her eyes widening as she read the numbers. 7,000 a month, she said slowly, like she couldn't wrap her mind around it. 7,000, Adrian? And you've been giving us 200 a week? I could feel the heat creeping up my neck. It's not what you think, I said, but my words were weak, even to me. My secret was out. Belle's face twisted with disbelief. You're telling me you've been hiding all this? You've been holding out on us while we're struggling? And for what, Adrian? For what? I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of everything settle in my stomach. It's mine, I said, trying to hold on to some semblance of control. I worked for it. I've earned it. She didn't hear me. Instead, she stormed into the kitchen, probably to tell Leonard, who was probably sitting in his chair, waiting for the next round of beer. I braced myself. This was it. This was the moment the floodgates opened. I hadn't planned on my family finding out. But now that they had, I knew there was no going back. I was going to have to face the consequences. And I had a feeling those consequences were going to be a lot worse than a simple argument. I didn't have to wait long for the storm to hit. Belle was back within minutes, her face flushed with rage. Leonard wasn't far behind, shuffling into the living room, looking more annoyed than worried. Adrian, what the hell is this? Leonard's voice was low, but there was a familiar edge to it. The kind of edge that came when he felt cornered. You've been making all this money and not sharing it? Not even with us. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. I didn't want you to know. It's mine, Leonard. All of it. I earned it. I've been giving you the same amount as always. That's bullshit. Belle snapped, her voice sharp. You've been hiding this from us, all while we've been struggling. And you couldn't even share some of it? You're just hoarding it all for yourself. I could feel the blood rushing to my face. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. I wasn't supposed to be standing here, defending myself for something I'd worked my ass off for. But somehow I was. I didn't want to keep giving you money, Belle. I didn't want to be your bank anymore. Leonard scoffed, taking a step toward me. And you think you can just walk away? You think you're better than us now because you've got a fancy title and a big paycheck? You owe us, Adrian. You promised your mother you'd take care of us. I stiffened, the words hitting harder than I expected. I didn't promise to be your paycheck, Leonard. I promised to take care of you. Not this. Well, here's how it's gonna go, Leonard said, his tone shifting. I'm not going to beg you. But Belle needs money for school, and I'm gonna need a new car soon. So, you're going to start helping us more, way more. 80% of your paycheck should go to us. Belle's got her university dream, and I've got mine. And I've earned it, too. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was absurd. It was outrageous. I stood there, staring at him, feeling a strange kind of disbelief crawl up my throat. I started laughing. A low, bitter laugh that bubbled out of me before I could stop it. You're kidding, right? I said, shaking my head. 80% of my paycheck? You honestly think you're entitled to that? You're a parasite, Leonard. Both of you are. Belle's face twisted in shock. What the hell is wrong with you? You're just going to leave us like this? I am, I said, my voice cold, steel cutting through the words. I'm done. I'm done with you both taking everything I've worked for. I'm not giving you another penny. Leonard took a step toward me, his face red with fury. You think you can just walk out on your family? I raised you. You owe me. You owe us. I don't owe you anything. I yelled back, shoving past him. For the first time in years, I wasn't intimidated. I wasn't afraid of his threats or his anger. I grabbed my bag, walking toward the door. You're making a huge mistake. Leonard's voice was louder now, desperate. You'll regret this, Adrian. You'll be back here begging us to take you in. I didn't turn around. I didn't look back. I walked out of that house, my heart pounding in my chest, but something else there too, a sense of freedom. It wasn't easy. It was messy, and it felt like cutting off a piece of my soul. But I wasn't going back. I couldn't. Not to that. I got in my car and drove. I didn't have a plan, but for the first time in years, I felt something like peace. I didn't know what I was doing at first. It was one of those moments where you feel like you've jumped off a cliff and only hope there's something soft waiting at the bottom. But as I drove through the streets of Lancaster, the air felt different. For the first time in my life, I wasn't thinking about my family's needs. I wasn't thinking about the mortgage, the bills, or the endless stream of requests for money. I was thinking about me. I rented a small apartment in a quiet building on the outskirts of town. It wasn't much, one bedroom, a small kitchen, The kind of place you only dream about when you've lived your whole life in someone else's shadow. But it was mine. The first night I spent there, I just stood in the center of the living room. I hadn't unpacked. I hadn't turned on the TV. I just sat on the floor and let the silence wash over me. It felt strange, like I was waiting for something to happen. But nothing did. And that, in itself, was the freedom I'd been missing all these years. The next few days, I bought new furniture. Simple things. A couch, a coffee table. Things that weren't meant to be shared. Things I could finally claim as my own. The first time I sat down on the couch, the way the fabric felt under my fingers, the way the space felt like it belonged to me, I realized how much I had missed. How much I had given away for the sake of keeping my family from falling apart. I used to feel guilty about spending money on myself, about enjoying anything I bought. But now it felt right. I cooked my first meal in the new kitchen, nothing fancy, just pasta and a glass of wine, but it tasted like freedom. I started taking walks. Small things, like going to a coffee shop or getting a haircut at a place that didn't make me feel like a customer in the way I used to feel when I was just the guy who could pay. For the first time in years, I wasn't rushing through the day, juggling obligations. I had time. I didn't know how long it would last, this peace. But for the first time, I didn't feel trapped. I was building a life where I wasn't someone else's lifeline. I wasn't the one who always had to be there. And that felt like a breath of air I didn't know I was holding. I was free. It wasn't long before my phone rang. The first time it happened, I was sitting in the kitchen, drinking coffee in my new apartment. I'd just spent the morning getting my car washed, something I hadn't had the time to do in years. The number on the screen wasn't familiar, but I knew exactly who it was. Belle. I let it ring, hoping she'd leave a message. I didn't feel like talking. Not then, not now. I was still getting used to the peace that came with being alone, with not constantly checking the time to make sure I didn't miss something that wasn't mine to carry. She didn't leave a message. The phone rang again. This time, I picked up. Adrian. Her voice cracked immediately, like she'd been crying. It sounded wrong, desperate, unhinged. Adrian, please, it's serious. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I had no desire to get dragged back into their mess, but it was like a reflex, the way my body tensed when I heard her voice. What is it, Belle? We're being evicted, she said, her voice breaking. Dad's behind on the rent again, and the landlord's finally fed up. He's giving us until the end of the month to move out. We don't have anywhere to go, Adrian. I felt my stomach twist. They were always behind on something. Rent, bills, basic responsibilities. But this felt different. Maybe it was because I wasn't there, or maybe it was because I didn't care anymore. And why are you calling me? I asked, my voice colder than I meant. Why don't you call Dad? Or the guy who spends all his days drinking with his friends? There was a pause on the other end. Then, more quietly, Belle said, You're the only one who can help us, Adrian. We don't have anyone else. Please, please, don't turn your back on us. This is the last time. I promise. I swear I'll change. Just help us. Just this one time. I was shaking my head before she even finished. No, I said, and it felt like a weight falling off my chest. I'm done, Belle. I'm done carrying you. I'm done being your bank. You've been draining me for years, and I'm not doing it anymore. You need to figure it out on your own. I could hear her sniffling, but I didn't feel the familiar tug of guilt. I didn't feel the urge to give in, to go back to the role I'd played for so long. I felt nothing, and maybe that was what hurt her more than anything. Please, she whispered again. We'll lose everything, Adrian. I don't know what we'll do without you. You'll figure it out, I said, my voice firm. Just like I did. Just like I always have. And then I hung up. It wasn't the first time they'd begged me for help, but it felt different this time. It wasn't about family anymore. It was about survival. Their survival. And I wasn't their lifeline anymore. I sat there, staring at the phone in my hand, and for the first time, I didn't feel bad. I felt relief. The kind of relief you get after taking a deep breath and realizing you don't have to hold it anymore. They were on their own. I walked to the window, looking out at the city lights flickering below. It was peaceful, and I realized, for the first time, that I hadn't felt truly at peace in years. I wasn't going back to that house. I wasn't going back to their drama. And if they wanted to fight for their lives, they could do it without me. No more. The call from Mom came 2 days later, just as I'd started to settle into my routine. I was still adjusting to the freedom, to not having to worry about anyone else's problems. The apartment was mine. My decisions were mine. No more late-night requests, no more emergency loans, no more having to explain why I couldn't help. The call came through while I was making lunch. The screen flashed Mom, and I hesitated before picking it up. I wasn't sure what she wanted, but I had a feeling I wouldn't like it. Adrian. Honey, I've been trying to reach you. Her voice sounded strained, like she was holding back tears. You have to understand, your father and I, we didn't mean for things to get this far. But now, Now we're in trouble. We're going to lose the house. And it's all your fault. I wasn't surprised by her tone, but hearing her say it out loud made my jaw tighten. What do you mean, Mom? I kept my voice even, though inside, I felt a storm rising. What's happening? They're threatening to foreclose, she said, her words coming in a rush. Your father's missed 3 payments, and the bank says they're done. If we don't pay up by the end of the week, they'll take the house. You're the only one who can help us, Adrian. We can't lose everything. I clenched my fists. This was it, the same tactic they always used. The manipulation, the guilt, and I could feel myself starting to resist. You've had years to fix this, Mom, I said, my voice cold. I've given you everything I had, money, time, energy. But every time I helped, it was never enough. And now you're asking for more. Why? Because you think I owe you? Because you're my parents? There was silence on the other end of the line, and I could hear her breathing heavily. I could imagine her sitting there, twisting the phone cord, trying to come up with something to make me feel guilty. You're being cruel, Adrian, she said softly, almost pleading. This is your family. We've done everything we could to raise you right. You're turning your back on us now, after everything. After everything? I echoed, the bitterness rising in my throat. I've been turning my back on myself for years. And for what? To make sure you're okay? To make sure Belle's okay? I've been paying your bills, fixing your problems, and what do I get in return? I get cut out of your life the second I stop giving. I'm done. I let out a shaky breath, the words finally escaping me. If you want to save yourselves, it's not my responsibility anymore. You made your choices. Now you're going to have to live with them. I'm not saving you this time. Her voice broke then, and for a moment, I almost felt the urge to soften. Almost. Please, she begged, we're family. We need you. No, I said firmly, the word echoing in my chest like a finality. I'm done. If you want to fix this, it's up to you. But I'm not your safety net anymore. I hung up before she could say anything more, and for the first time, I didn't feel an ounce of guilt. I felt relieved. I was finally free, and I didn't need to apologize for it. The days after I hung up on Mom felt like a rebirth. I had started something new, something real, and I wasn't looking back. The apartment felt more like home every day. I spent my weekends going to farmers markets, picking out fresh ingredients like it was some luxury I had never afforded myself before. I bought a few plants to brighten up the windowsill, things I could water and take care of, things that weren't always demanding something from me. I started taking time off from work when I needed it. Not because I couldn't handle the job, but because I could finally choose when to rest. I wasn't waiting for someone else's emergency to throw me off course anymore. I could make plans, real plans, without the weight of 100 other people's needs hanging over me. One Friday evening, I sat on the balcony with a bottle of wine I had been saving, the city lights twinkling below. It was quiet. I could hear the distant hum of traffic, the occasional dog barking, but it wasn't the kind of noise that made my pulse race. This was the kind of silence that let me breathe. I laughed to myself as I realized I hadn't heard from my family in a week. No texts, no calls. Just nothing. Part of me had expected them to come crawling back, maybe with apologies, maybe with guilt trips. But none of that came. And in a way, that silence felt louder than anything they could have said. The lack of their demands was a gift I hadn't even realized I was missing until now. I reached for my phone and scrolled through some old photos of me and Belle when we were kids, before everything became about money, before Mom left and Dad checked out. A pang of nostalgia hit me, but it wasn't sadness. It was more like a memory of who I used to be before I became their lifeline. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had been trapped by a promise I made to a woman who hadn't kept hers. But I'd been holding on to it for far too long, expecting it to be some sort of badge of honor. Now, I didn't need to be a hero. I didn't need to be anyone but myself. I could make my own choices, spend my days as I saw fit, and take care of the one person who truly mattered, me. For the first time in years, I felt like I was living life on my own terms. And that felt better than anything I had ever given to them.